Boker Tov, Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Welcome to the Aliyah. Today it's Parasha Balak, not the last Aliyah. It's actually the sixth Aliyah. Tomorrow, technically, is last Aliyah. But today we get to end our time together speaking about Balak, which it really deals with Balaam, the famous Gentile prophet who was cursing Israel, only to find out that you can't curse Israel, can't curse Jews, can't curse the Hebrews. By the way, we've mentioned replacement theology a couple times. Thought occurred to me this morning as I was reading through some things that, frequently HaShem is promising salvation, promising redemption, promising, ultimate healing and blessings and so on, and to people, quote, that he brought out of Egypt, right? He oftentimes, in fact, it's so frequent in the scriptures where HaShem reminds us that I'm the God who brought you out of Egypt. And he goes on to, either prior to that statement or after that statement, one or the other, he's using that as a reason why he's going to save us, redeem us, heal us, make us prosperous. He often says, because, I brought you out of Egypt, which made me think about something. And that is that, there's a lot of non-Jews today who believe that they're Israel and that they've kind of pretty much taken the place of Israel, spiritual Israel. But I think a good question when you're having these conversations with people, maybe this is something that might help them. That you might say, okay, so you think you're Israel, but did God take you out of Egypt? Like literally, no, not figuratively, but literally. Are you among the people that God took out of Egypt? The answer, of course, is no. Not unless, of course, you convert. If you convert, then the answer is yes, right? Because you are connecting to those people. That is that at that point it becomes your literal family. And of course, the sages bring down that every soul was present at Mount Sinai, to include those who would, eventually convert and become Jews. But I think that's a relevant question to ask people. Were you taken out of Egypt? Because if you read the scriptures, it is abundantly clear that the promises apply to those who were brought out of Egypt. So there's that. I just want to share that thought with you. Today we're coming to the end of Balak, and we're going to focus on some insights from Rabbi Trugman, because I was reading through some of his stuff, and he has a really great article, a couple of great articles here, but one of the articles has to do with the power of positive thinking, and it got me to thinking that I haven't said in quite a while that talked about the concept of Gamzula Tova, or which by the way, Gamzula Tova has become really a part of our culture here in Lapid Judaism. We've adopted this from Jewish thought and really made it a part of our lifestyle. And but also I wanted to mention, the idea that think good and it will be good. I haven't said that in quite a while. I talked about this at length at times, but think good and it will be good. The power of positive thinking, the power to attract, and of course, many of you who come from the other side, the Klippa, you remember that there was a big movement in the 80s into the early 90s, kind of fizzled out, I think, after that. But it was the so-called name it, claim it movement, and the reality is that there was a lot of validity to that movement with respect to the principle. The problem is, of course, the name it, claim it was used solely for selfish gain, and there was lots of other problems with it, which we don't need to get into here. That's not really relevant. The point I wanted to make, though, is that these principles exist even in outside of Torah Judaism. Of course, they don't last They don't amount to anything. They don't produce a positive result. So think good and it will be good. If you couple that with Torah Judaism and Yeshua, of course, then you're always going to have a positive result. It's going to end up, for the best. But I think in general, we want to focus on the idea of positive thinking. And then there's another article, which I think we're going to be able to get to, hopefully, with the idea that, these attacks that we have in life, these spiritual attacks and so forth, can be because we've opened the door to those attacks, which means that we have to be proactive in closing those doors. But of course, we know the old adage, which is true: what the enemy meant for evil, God turns for good, and that's a true thing too. A lot of these things that we perceive to be negatives actually end up being positives, and so we're going to be looking at that today and just trying to energize our idea of positive thinking and not being worried all the time. And of course, really trying to avoid anytime we run up against a problem or an issue or a challenge that we avoid the idea of just meeting a challenge and automatically going to the negative. Being a negative thinker, being someone who, not just negative thinker, but what's the other word? Being cynical. These are not good qualities. And so if you find yourself that you're somebody who's typically cynical, that you're negative, that you are suspicious, you really need to work on that and be a little bit more positive. Now, note, by the way, I did not say be naive. Don't be naive. Okay. Don't be naive. You need to be shrewd and you need to be cautious, but we need to work on our attitude and thinking the best and thinking positively, understanding that a lot of times things that happen in our life that are seemingly negative actually tend to bring out the best in us in actuality. So the power of positive thinking, opening up our minds to some positivity in our life. A lot of things, again, what the enemy meant for good ends up being for our very best. And I know that you have many stories that you could tell in your life about that very thing, and I know that I do too. So Baruch HaShem. Good morning to you, Clay. Glad you are here with us. Good morning, Gianna, Daniel. Good morning to you, Peaches, Formula from Georgia. Good to see you this morning. Hepzibah, good morning to you. Sergio, Boker Tov. Seth, I'm glad you are here. Brenda Jones, welcome to you, ma'am. Chanel, welcome. Al and Anna, welcome to you both. Who else do we have this morning? Sarah Merritt, hope you and Shane are doing good and being blessed. Zake and Yigal, good morning. Yishai, good to see you. Can't wait to see you. Are y'all guys? Yishai, are you and Adea, are y'all going to come down here for anything? For the High Holy Days or Sukkot, maybe? Something like that. That'd be great. Good morning, Leah. Hope you and Shmuel are doing good. When are you guys coming? I should talk more Yankee and embrace our Yankee members. When are you guys coming? Is it you guys? When are you guys coming? Not that y'all are Yankees, Leah. I just thought about that. Good morning, Shoshana. Hope you and Yaakov. Speaking of you guys, when are you guys coming to see us? When is everybody? Is anybody coming to see us? Anybody? Hello? Anybody? Good to see you guys. Good morning, Nellie Grace. Corin, I know y'all are coming during Sukkot, and I cannot wait to see you. So look forward to that. Geneva, good to see you. Good morning from the great state of Ohio. Glad you are here. Ahava, good morning. Yolanda, good morning. Heather Miller, good morning to you. Heather, when are you going to come see us? Where are you from, Heather? Tell us, remind us again. Good morning, Micaiah. Good morning, Pinkus. Good to see you this morning. Cassia, good morning. Mazel Tov, Geneva. Employer approved your time off for Shabbat. Good. Yes, very good for you. A little word out there. Thank you, Geneva, for reminding me about that. Just a little PSA. there are many of you who are coming into this movement, and you are wanting to embrace, following Torah. And sometimes with employers working on Shabbat, not it's not uncommon that is a challenge, right? People are like, well, my job requires me to work on Shabbat. So I want to speak to those, particularly those who live in the United States of America. Now, every state has its own laws. I'm going to speak to you from the state of Texas perspective, but most states pretty much are the same. But it's not really legal for your employer to make you work on Shabbat if you're wanting to take the Shabbat off for religious reasons, okay? Unless it's a real hardship on them, which they would have to prove, which generally they can't. Unless, of course, you're a doctor, a nurse, a police officer, a firefighter, United States military, something like that, right? Secret Service, or security forces, something along those lines, then obviously you're exempt. But generally speaking, if anything that's not related to that, then you should not work on the Holy Shabbat. Employers will apply pressure. They will apply intimidation. They will give you veiled threats. None of that, of course, is legal. My advice to you, because I used to be a headhunter, a recruiter back in the day, it's been a long time ago, but that's what I used to do. Do not ever work on Shabbat. Because the minute you do, you prove to them that it doesn't really mean that much to you. So for instance, as an example, you say to your employer, I really want the Shabbat off for religious reasons, because I'm walking this Jewish path, I'm going through conversion, or I am a Jew, or whatever, and it really means a lot to me. Well, I really need you to work on this Sabbath. Well, okay, but just know that this means a lot. Once you do that, you're done. You're done. Because what you've just proved to them is really not that important. So my advice to you, if you've done that before, I'm not saying there's not a way out of it, but what I'm saying to you is don't put yourself in that position. This is a PSA for all of you. Now, for those of you who live outside the United States, you might not have those legal protections because you're not in America. However, I will tell you, because we have a HCO who is a senior executive of a very major company, and he ran into this very problem. I won't give you the details any more than that, but he contacted me and said, Rabbi, what do I do? They're telling me that we have to do this. And I said, go to them. And this is a very serious situation, because he was like upper level. And I said, you need to go to them and tell them there's no way you can do it. And he did. And guess what? Because of that, they changed the entire schedule of the entire plant. So you just have to be respectful, but not budging on this moment. Okay, I know that was a long PSA, but a lot of you suffer from this, and you should know that the employer has to accommodate you, by the way. They don't have an option, in case you're wondering. Ariella, Rafaela, good morning. Sergio, good morning. Mariahu, good morning. Amita, good morning. Glad you're here. Leah, good morning to you. Kelly Allard, good morning. Brenda, good morning. Milka, good to see you. Who else is on the program? Bachya, good morning. Did I say good morning, Gianna? Heather's from Michigan. All right. Well, good. Come see us. Yeah, that's right. I remember that now. Okay, yeah, Michigan. That's right. Because I think I asked you about Drummond Island one time. Good morning, Ami. Glad you're here. Sakot, Leah, yeah, I hope so. Yosef, good morning. Yes, we'll see you tomorrow. Natacha, good to see you as well. Yeah, Yisa, I hope you guys can make it as soon as possible. Baruch HaShem. All right. Good morning, Eliezer. There's Eliezer. Good to see you, sir. Hope you're doing great, running around, enjoying beautiful Florida. So, all right, let's dive into this and see what we can get into with the positive thinking from Rabbi Trugman. So he says, now, by the way, excuse me, one last thing. I just happened to glance over and see Geneva. Apparently, we sent a letter. We sent a letter for her. That's right. So Yeah, if you guys need a letter for you, because your employer might not trust you, that's understandable too. They need a letter from a rabbi. You can always contact our office, and we can send you a letter. I've done that lots of times for lots of people. We helped somebody who back in the 21 or 22, their major international corporation was demanding that they take the COVID shot, or they were going to fire everybody. It was a government multinational company that had military contracts, and I sent them a letter, and they released our person from the COVID mandate. So letters work. So, all right, the power of positive thinking. Balaam, knowing the power of God, did not dare cross him. Okay. Even though our oral tradition makes clear that Balaam undoubtedly wanted to curse Israel at Balak's request, he only prophesied what God put in his mouth. Okay. Indeed, perhaps he had no choice as whether he wished to or not. Every time he opened his mouth to curse the Jews, God put praise in it. Yet the Talmud reveals, he writes, that he infused every blessing he was forced to deliver with evil intent. Sanhedrin 105b. So Balaam was really trying hard to curse us. It's not that he didn't want to curse us, it's just that he couldn't curse us, okay? So it says, indeed, every one of the blessings except one resulted in misfortune. At some point in Jewish history, the only exception being, how goodly are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. Now, this incident teaches us important rules about blessings and curses. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of everyday life. So it goes on to say, depending on the intent and the attitude of both the giver and the recipient, a blessing can become a curse, and a curse can become a blessing. For starters, there are blessings that are truly blessings, and then there are blessings that, when given, are really meant to be curses. Second of all, there are curses that are really curses, and there are curses that, no matter what the giver's intent was, are actually blessings in disguise. Now, isn't that true? There are sometimes people try to curse us or treat us ill and so on. But in the end, they really end up doing us a huge favor. Think about this. Good morning, Norma. Buenos dias, bienvenido. Think about the employer, for instance, who applies pressure to you. And this has happened to me in my life. I know it's happened to you as well. And so, whatever, maybe somebody's not treating you well at your job or something like that. And so you decide you've had enough and you quit, only to find a much better job. But otherwise, you wouldn't have found that job that you love so much had you not been pressured and so forth at the old job. And how many people have started businesses because they lost their job and they needed to do something, and as next thing you know, they have their own business, and it's great and it's amazing. Can I just share with you on that line, really kind of my story, and as I sit here and think about this, it just came into my memory, and that is that, approximately about 1,000 years ago, when I was still on the other side of the fence in that other faith system, I desperately wanted to be in ministry. I wanted to be in ministry full time because it was my calling, and I knew it. And I was in the corporate world, and I hated it, and I just didn't like it. I just wanted to be in ministry, and so Rabbi Singer and I at the time were a part of a large organization, a church, and they had a nice office and staff and all this. And so a position came up, and it was a position that would have been great for me, I thought, at the time. And we had been at this church for a long time. I was ordained at this church. We were already teaching, and we had a history. It wasn't like I was just some some guy in a crowd. I mean, I knew leadership. We were very intimate with leadership, and so I applied for this position. And the drawback of this particular place is they had a lot of nepotism going on. There were two particular families. One, of course, was the pastor and all of his family. And then there was this other family that was like best friends of their family. And you didn't work on the staff if you didn't belong to one of those two families. Unfortunately, that's just a reality. And so I didn't get the job. Instead, it went to the son of the other family, as typically we saw happen. And it was very frustrating. It was very disheartening. And I recall it wasn't just because of that. There were some other issues. We were already starting to depart Christianity. But even back then, 1,000 years ago, we were already starting to depart Christianity. So we were already starting to have, some conflicts with the theology. But, I had to sit down with the pastor. I expressed my frustrations, not just about the job, but also about the other stuff. And we decided to part ways peaceably, and we did it the right way. But I look back on that, and I really recognize that was a deep disappointment. I was so frustrated, but thank God in heaven I did not get that job. Thank you, HaShem. Toda Rabbah. I am so thankful. Now, back then I didn't know, but now today I'm so thankful, because it was really that moment that pushed me into eventually starting my own ministry, which of course is why I'm sitting here today. So you see, this is why it's so important. And I just, all of us have had probably similar stories we could tell. I just happen to have the microphone at the moment to tell my story, but that's really it. And so a lot of times we look at this in life, go, man, this is really bad. I can't believe this happened to me. But, it may not be bad. Could be a good thing. In fact, think good, it will be good. It's not bad. It will turn out for the best. So it says, thirdly, the effect of a blessing or curse can be transformed from one to the other quite suddenly or over a long period of time, depending, for example, on how the receiver receives them. And fourthly, these utterances can manifest differently in different contexts with regard to different people, as what may be blessings for one person and a curse for another. So, it could transfer this way. You can turn a cursing into a blessing. The old adage, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade, that type of thing. But these are real things, right? So we should really strive to think this way. We live in a very negative and very pessimistic world. And it's gotten worse, I think, as people have been trained to be hopeless and to think that, poverty and what have you is the new normal. It's not. Look at things in a positive way. Look at things in not in a negative way, and understand that these setbacks, these seeming curses, probably aren't curses. These are probably HaShem directing you in one way or another. So listen to this next segment, because this is going to sound very, very familiar, particularly from Matthew chapter 23. Okay. It says, to paraphrase a rabbinic idiom, one of the greatest compliments that can be paid to people is that their insides are like their outsides. Baruch 28:8. Does that sound familiar? What is the rebuke that Yeshua gave to his fellow Pharisees? Your outside looks clean, but your inside is you're like whitewashed tombs, right? Your inside is like dead. What's he talking about there? And it goes on to say here, they are not hypocritical, and what they say is what they mean, pure and simple. And so this is what it means to have your outside like your inside. You're not a hypocrite. That's what it means. That you're not a hypocrite. You're just what people see is what they get. And I think that those of you, now, not everybody who's on the channel here watching live right now, we have about 55 people. It looks like sometimes we have as many as 80. You don't live here. You don't know Rebbetzin and me, Rebbetzin and me, proper English. You haven't been around us, but other people have. The Zakins have for years. Keturah has for Keturah. We've known Keturah for 900 years. Um, Shoshana Brenner has been around a little bit longer as well. She's been around for 850 years. You don't really know us, and I get that we're basically on TV for all intents and purposes, but you should just know that with the Rebbetzin and myself, and this goes, by the way, not just for Rebbetzin and me, but also for the Zakins, and for that matter, Keturah, Shoshana, Milka and Daniel, Yosef and Baracha, the people here in leadership, what you see is who we are. I am not different sitting here at this desk than I am if I were sitting on my couch. If you met me in the grocery store, you're going to see the same personality, the same person. And to me, that means a lot. It means a lot that we don't put on a show, that we don't put on airs. That's important to me. It always has been. I just want to live the life of a Jew and be a good rabbi and do my best. But, that's what it means to not be a hypocrite, is that your outside is like your inside, and you're not lying and putting on errors. And, you just don't do that. I was having a conversation with somebody online recently, in fact, and I said, look, we read, the person was like, you should read the Bible, which, I never thought about that. In fact, I'm going to actually start reading the Bible now that this person said that to me. And I said, well, actually, we do read the Bible, and we actually read it in Hebrew as well, so we kind of get to the point of the text. And this person said, well, I read Hebrew as well. I read Hebrew and Greek. And I said, no, you don't. I'm sure that came as a shock. How do you know you don't? You don't know me. Like, you don't. You don't read Hebrew and you don't read Greek. I know you don't. And they said, well, okay, I don't. I use a concordance. But that's an example. I appreciate their honesty, right, and admitting that they lied. But look, unfortunately, that happens all too often in that world. Misrepresentation, lying. I'll be all things to all men. With the Jews, I'll pretend to be Jew. If I'm with Hebrew speakers and readers, I'll pretend that I too can read Hebrew and speak Hebrew. That's where that you wonder, well, how would somebody lie like that? Isn't lying not? I mean, even Paul taught that lying was bad. Yeah, because that goes back to, I'm just trying to be all things to all people, so I might win a few to Christ. What that really means is I'm trying to lie to as many people as I can to try to trick them into believing my cult. That principle, in other words, is embedded spiritually in them. But that's being a hypocrite. Like, you're pretending to be something you're not. Okay. So it continues on. In relation to our discussion, their blessings do not hide alternative agendas. Okay. They mean what they say. Okay. What did you mean by that? What I said. That's what I meant by that. Yet we all know that attaining such a level is much easier said than done. And by the way, let me just, again, providing a little balance here. This doesn't mean that you're supposed to be somebody that doesn't have a filter. And Rebbetzin has talked about this in her Musar classes in times past, and that is that, not having a filter is not a good quality either. So don't utilize the excuse of, well, I'm just being open and honest. Don't use that excuse to be, filterless. Okay. So it says a famous Torah scholar known as Nachum Ish Gamzu. He's Ish Gamzu, the man is known this too is for the good, turned every possible stumbling block into a potential blessing through his positive attitude. The Talmud likewise coined an expression, all that God does, he does for the good. Barakot 60b. Barakot 60p. All that God does, God does for the good, for the very best. Okay. So everything that happens in our life, we have to understand through Bitzikon, which is what Zake and Rayford has been discussing, is that he does it comes from him. He's the sovereign. No one thwarts his plan. Okay. The good in what happens in life may not be readily apparent. It may take hard work to ultimately see, but eventually it will be revealed. Okay, we don't always have the answers, and that's okay. And by the way, not having the answer doesn't mean you can't ask. It's okay to ask. We may not have the answer. Okay. Now, some people ask their pastor and so forth, well, how come this, how come that? And if the answer is given in Scripture, by the way, that's the answer, right? So if the Scripture, for instance, says the Shabbat is the seventh day, which it is, then there's not another answer. And so if the question is, how come we don't keep the Shabbat? There's not the appropriate answer is not get out. Okay. So it says some people naturally see the positive side of life. Now, once a man went to the seer of Lublin and complained that he was having a hard time dealing with a string of setbacks in his life. The seer advised him to go to Reb Susha of Anipoli, who could teach him how to deal with suffering. When the man entered Reb Susha's broken down home, he told him why he had come. Reb Susha, who had lived a life of great poverty, could not understand why the seer had sent someone to talk to him about how to deal with suffering. In his own eyes, God had only been good to him and given him exactly what he needed. So, this is true as well. It goes along with the idea of positive thinking. We all know, first of all, because we're human beings, we look at our particular trials, our particular sufferings, our challenges, our obstacles, and, sometimes we complain and we get frustrated, and all of that's normal and natural because we're human beings. And then you run into somebody else who maybe they're in a wheelchair. Maybe they're suffering, God forbid, from some type of serious illness. May HaShem give them a refuah shlema. Maybe you're complaining because your car has been having trouble, but then there's somebody else who doesn't have a car. Maybe you're frustrated because the house in which you live, you really wish it had this or really wish it had that. But then there's other people who can't afford a home or who have to live in a rundown neighborhood because of one reason or another. We could go on and on and on. And my father is fond of reminding me that no matter what your situation is, there is always someone in a worse situation. Okay. My father has also said to me a little bit of fatherly wisdom. He said to me one time, he said, son, don't ever say that you've hit rock bottom because you probably just hit the side of the wall. But there's other people who have hit way lower than you have. No matter what it doesn't matter the situation, right? He's just talking in general. And, we should be careful about that. We have not hit rock bottom. There are people who are in way worse situations than we could possibly find ourselves. The seer of Lublin sent this man to see Reb Susha. Reb Susha didn't understand. He said, why do you come to see me? My life is good. My life is fine. Being content with what we have and being thankful for what we have, that's where someone is strong. And frankly, that's the foundation from which God can and will bless us when we are content. Now, by the way, again, to provide a little balance here, being content with what you have doesn't mean that you don't or can't have ambition. Being content does not mean that you don't have a desire to do better or to better yourself. Being content with your car, being content with your home doesn't mean that you can't want a better one. So I want to provide a little balance there as well. Being content with your wealth doesn't mean that you wouldn't mind being more wealthy, you see. Okay, so don't be confused. And also, I should say something else. We talked here about Reb Zusha as an example. It's a great example of someone who's content. He didn't understand, why the seer would send somebody to see him. He thinks God has given him all that he has given him, and that's great. Something else to say about this to provide a little bit of balance is poverty is not a blessing, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody should be content with poverty. Nobody should be content with lack. Poverty is of itself not a blessing. There's no blessing in the Bible, in the Tanakh, where God is going to bless us with poverty, bless us with lack. The fact of the matter is, if you're broke, you can't do anything. If you're broke, you can't, you can't have a positive effect in people's life, really. I mean, you can, but you know what I mean? You really need those finances. The Bible talks about that no one listens to the wisdom of a poor man. And isn't that true? If you drove by a building that looked like it was dilapidated, about to fall over, and it said, the Miracle House of Wisdom, would you go in there and try to learn wisdom? Of course not. Of course you wouldn't. Place looks like it's about to fall over. If I push on the door too hard, it might collapse. So poverty is not a blessing, and that's again a balance. Okay. So it says the mystical tradition teaches us that our difficulty in distinguishing between good and evil is a result of Adam and Eve eating from the tree of knowledge, good and evil. Two forces that had once been clearly defined became blurred and mixed together. In truth, there is hardly a good that has no seed of its own undoing, or a curse that has no possibility of being turned into a blessing. That's true, by the way. Joseph said, where'd it go? Well, he deleted it. But being wealthy makes it easier to follow the commandments. It's true. I mean, really, it's true. Now let's look at the final paragraph here as we conclude our time together. That's right, Kasi. Poverty is listed among the curses in Deuteronomy. That's true. Poverty is never listed as a blessing. So doesn't mean, though, that if we can be thankful for what we have, yeah, that's true. But we should never accept poverty as, as necessarily from God. Remember, by the way, speaking of positive thinking, our attitude has a lot to do with poverty. Cleanliness and organization has a lot to do with poverty. Remember what I've talked about in times past, what the sages have mentioned, and that is that disorganization and filth attracts a spirit of poverty. So one of the easy ways, think about how easy this is. One of the easy ways to attract a spirit of wealth is to get rid of the clutter, to organize, clean up, put stuff away. You think, clean your car, keep your car clean. It's crazy, right? It's true, though. It literally attracts a spirit of prosperity. Being filthy and dirty and lazy and just stuff thrown everywhere, disorganized, junk all over the place, that will attract a spirit, a demon of poverty. Doesn't cost a thing in the world to be clean. Doesn't cost you anything to be organized. Doesn't cost you anything to get rid of the clutter, to get rid of the junk, stuff you don't need. By the way, are you aware, we're almost done here, but are you aware that being a hoarder is a symptom of having a lack of faith? Boy, I can't throw this away. That stuff is worthless, man. You haven't used it in 10 years. You're probably not going to use it in the next 10 years. I know, but I might somehow need this. You know what? If you need that, which is probably not going to be the case, just go out and buy it when you need it. But wait, but I'll be spending money. Right now, you got a pile of junk. Get rid of it. Being a hoarder is a symptom of not having faith. It's a symptom of a lack of bitachon. Get rid of it. You know, people have boxes of junk in their closets, boxes of all kinds of things that are 10, 12, 20 years old, they'll never use. Outdated pieces of equipment, clothes they'll never wear. You know, get rid of that stuff. And you'll notice, by the way, that when you declutter, you will declutter your mind as well. You think that all that stuff around you is giving you comfort. Actually, it's sucking the life out of your soul. Get rid of it and invite a spirit of wisdom and prosperity into your life. Okay. And by the way, if you need help in this area, seeing a therapist is not wrong. Talking to a Zakin, talking to me is not wrong. But seeing a therapist is not wrong. Some people need a therapist, and that's okay. Okay, it's not wrong. So one final paragraph here. Recognizing this truth, Judaism has traditionally taught that upon having a disturbing dream, one can employ a specific rabbinic formula to reframe the dream by declaring 7 times before the 3 people, I have seen a good dream. I have seen a good dream. I have seen a good dream. To this very reply, they would say, you have seen a good dream. It is good, and may it become good. The rabbis learned that the importance of doing this from Joseph's dream interpretation, as the Torah declares that events came to pass as Joseph had interpreted. Barakot 55b. And indeed, Judaism teaches that the dream follows the interpretation, not the other way around. The way we see things is the way that they will occur. That is the force and the power of positive thinking. End of our Aliyah today. Thank you so much for being here. Think good and it will be good. Gamzula tova. Let's clean some stuff up. And I'm in the mood now to declutter, to get organized, to get rid of junk, get rid of stuff you don't need. If you've got people use I have tax returns. I have bank statements that are 15 years old. Throw them away. Shred them or whatever and get rid of them. Right? You only need 7 years worth anyway. Look, bless it. I think that's true. Unless if you're an accountant out there, a CPA, and I'm wrong, please don't hesitate to disagree. But I think it's just 7 years. God bless you. Look forward to seeing you. We'll see you on Shabbat tomorrow. The Drash is the second greatest revelation of the end times. Look forward to seeing you in all of that. Thank you for being here. Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, watch it again and again and again, and watch other material on this channel. There's lots of other content you may not have seen. I encourage you to take a gander and see what you might enjoy. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Shalom Aleichem and Shabbat Shalom.